The philosophy of Hegel, G.W.F. Hegel, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, very German name, is primarily a philosophy of history, because for Hegel, history is not just a kind of one subject that you might study in school, or some names, some dates, some facts, a list of things that have happened. History is the whole development, unfolding of reality. For Hegel, all that is real is slowly developing, unfolding, becoming more and more fully manifest. And that process, that evolution, that coming into fuller and fuller being is what he means by history. So Hegel's philosophy is very much a philosophy of history, and he describes history as the unfolding of the Geist, in German, G-E-I-S-T. The Geist is the spirit. You could say the Great Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the Divine Spirit, the Spirit of God. Geist has that connotation of divinity, but not really in a traditional sense. Not the God we might think of who is transcendent, where the world, the universe, creation depends upon God, but God is independent, relatively, of creation. God could have not created. God could have decided not to make the universe, and God would still be God, according to a kind of traditional monotheistic view. But for Hegel, no. The God of Hegel, the Geist, has to create the material universe, interact with it, and then grow, develop, unfold, unfurl, spiral out, and become more and more fully divine. So there is this approach towards history, but not just human history, not just the history of our planet or our solar system, our galaxy, but the whole universe, and not just the material universe, but more fundamentally, Geist, God, the Divine Spirit, Spirit with a capital S. So the unfolding of history for Hegel is the unfolding of the Geist in this kind of spiraling pattern. Now Hegel himself uses this language maybe once, but it's become the standard way of talking about Hegel. There's movement forward, thesis, back again, antithesis, and then forward once more with synthesis. So you have some social movement, some advancement of an idea, a perspective, a point of view, backlash, critique, so moving forward, thesis, back again, antithesis, but then forward once more with the synthesis. So something is said, contradicted, but then the two different points of view, the yes, the no, there's some coming together, some reconciliation, and then we go forward again. You could think of Black Lives Matter, a recent social movement from about 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, not that the movement isn't still present, but those widespread protests across the country, I believe that was summer of 2020, 2021, 4 or 5 years ago. You had Black Lives Matter, a social movement here in this country, and then you had some saying, no, all lives matter, blue lives matter, these protests, they're really just riots, they're not helping. So you had a movement, a critique of the movement, and then a kind of coming forward, coming together and forward, where perhaps you could say the fundamental point, the dignity of African American lives here in this country, the fundamental point is made, perhaps nuanced a bit in light of certain critiques, but the core message remains, and we move forward with that message in mind. Or take the Me Too movement. I believe the hashtag, the hashtag Me Too. I think that was maybe 2017 or 18 when that was all over Twitter. You have to tell me. I don't have social media, but I hear about these things secondhand. So you had a kind of movement about believing women. That was a slogan that was used. Believe women. Take more seriously sexual misconduct directed towards women or towards anybody. Doesn't have to be women. Some men were leaving the Me Too hashtag, or what is it? Hashtag Me Too, however you're supposed to say it. That was prevalent online, posted not by women, but also many men. And then there was a kind of backlash to that. People complained about, oh, we're setting up a cancel culture, or what do you mean believe women? Sometimes people lie, men lie, women lie. We can't just, believe an accusation. So there was very much a critique, but you could say the fundamental point moved forward. We take sexual misconduct seriously. Universities now take Title IX maybe even more seriously than they did before. There's more awareness of sexual violence. There's more focus on the importance of consent. And so you have maybe some modern examples of what Hegel means by history spiraling, but moving forward. For Hegel, there's a very progressive view of history. We're moving forward towards some higher plane of existence. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis as the basic rhythm of history. What Hegel calls the dialectic of history, that spiral shape for Hegel is the dialectic of history. What does that mean? Well, the kind of spiraling out, the kind of unfolding, moving forward of the Geist of history, because history is simply a reflection of the life of the Geist. So this world spirit developing, evolving, and moving us forward in some measurable, some intelligible pattern. So history is not just one damn thing after another, but history as having a rationality, a logic, a shape that could be understood and therefore better participated in. That is Hegel's basic philosophy of history, a form of German idealism. What is most real for Hegel is not so much the material world, but Geist, this great force, this divine spirit that is fundamentally immaterial, but works itself out through the material. So Hegel, as a German idealist, gives us this view of history as the unfurling of the Geist.